Hi folks, a little bit of an update and a chat, etc. Today, as I look at my phone, it's Tuesday the 4th of February. How time flies. 2025. So yesterday I did a little chat and I said I was quite disgusted by what Manchester police putting out this guy's details. It turned out they put out his name and for some bizarre reason his date of birth. Now I thought I was expecting not much of a response. I thought I'd have been the only one a bit thinking this was stupid, but the amount of people online who also have been posting how disgraceful this is unbelievable. I was quite taken back, to be honest. Now, for those who don't know, this is in regards to this Quran burning. Now, I'm not a person who believes in burning any books, religious or not religious. I don't care what they are. There's something doesn't stand right to me about burning books. But that doesn't mean I'm going to criticise other people for doing things, or at least in this case, something that I personally wouldn't do. I think it's important to, freedom of expression, freedom of, your right to free speech and all this. And one of the things about freedom of speech and freedom of expression means you have to defend people who you might, who may do acts you personally may not agree with. That's, it's an uncomfortable thing for people who are believers in free speech. I've heard people argue this before. They'll say, oh no, we believe in free speech, but only certain. They'll say, but what happens if somebody says X, Y and Z? And I go, well, let them. It's not for you to decide, because suddenly it reminds me of a few years ago where that Scottish comedian, the YouTuber, did a joke online with his pet pug, or I think it was his girlfriend's or wife's pet pug. And it went to their version of, I think it was their version of the magistrates. Scotland has slightly different laws, from my understanding, to England. It's all a bit of a different setup. And you had the guy there who decided if it was a joke or not. And it turned out this guy decided it wasn't a joke. Now I find this bizarre, actually, that this is in, this period of history is when we've got people who are actually deciding if it's a joke or not in the court of law. I would suspect in years to come we'll look back at this and people won't believe it. It'll be like some sort of dark days. Although a lot of people thinking that, they're thinking that they're being very forward. I think a lot of these people who see themselves as forward and woke and stuff will be viewed in history as being the modern day fascists. Anyway, so one of the problems is the police have now put out this guy's details. Presumably the police have a brain cell and understand that religious people may react and try to harm or kill this guy. They may abuse him, they may murder him, they may assault his house, they may abuse his family. I don't know if he's got family or pets or whatever in this house. But they could now be potentially at risk because of the police putting this post out. Now, considering it's only a few months ago, people have going to prison for 2 years for making posts on social media that was deemed to encourage the riots. I actually would argue very much so this is doing the same, if not more. It's unnecessary. If somebody had posted this about somebody else, as in I believe the word's doxing, I would actually consider that serious. I've said it before. I don't believe in doxing people's names online or their, home addresses or anything. I think it's one of the most evil things you can do. In fact, it's the only when I talk about removing posts people make, the only time I've ever removed people's posts is when they've tried to dox somebody. They've said, oh, this person's... and I won't allow it. I'm not going to allow somebody, even people have assaulted me, because I know the details. I know, for instance, the whole family address of the people, you know, that perverted fat bloke who heavily smokes and rubbed himself against me and knocked me over. Know everything about him. I know everything about that weirdo who's got the bulbous head, who one day threatened me and then assaulted me the week after abusing this Jewish guy in the street and doing a sexual hand gesture in front of children. And also said, oh, if I talked about him, he'd sue me. Still waiting for that lawsuit, even though, you know, good luck on that, considering I've got £1 in the bank, so you ain't going to get much out of me. But yeah, I have, you know, even people have assaulted me. I've never posted their details because I don't think it's right to. I don't want them being harmed. These are evil people who may want to harm me. Oh, by the way, talking about harming me, people have asked me, have I reported these death threats to the police? Well, what's the point? It's unlikely they'll do much. I mean, let's be honest. If you haven't known, about 6 probably more months ago, we, Marty, News Now Yorkshire, myself, were assaulted just outside Leeds University. We've got the details of everyone who assaulted us, and we've got video footage. It's quite a lot of video footage of the assault, so there's no sort of problems there. So far, my understanding is nothing's come of it. I think I had a phone call saying, oh, we might be looking into it, something. It was just, you know, I don't really have much in regards to expectations, so what is the point of having just death threats? I mean, you've seen people have threatened me and assaulted me many times at protests. Again, the police know who these people are. Nothing comes of it. So do you think I'm going to waste my time, you know, making pointless reports? And I can't be bothered. Honestly, it's just not the worth the hassle. Life's too short, so no, I can't be bothered. Especially most will be using bogus accounts and whatnot. But anyway, now, oh, hang on, someone's coming. Let's just chat till we get past. I won't turn it off because I'll probably lose my place anyway. We're just walking the dogs, you see. Oh, by the way, the reason I was going to go out today, but car insurance was messing me about again. So, hang on, let's just wait. Probably have. It's all right. They're all friendly. Don't worry. They're all friendly. She's just a bit mouthy. Oh, Archie! No, you pulled me over. Then it was naughty. Sorry. Don't pull me over. No, Archie, you're not pulling me over. Oh, Archie, he's faster than you. Oh, silly boy. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. He's friendly, just giddy. Archie, you pulled me over. Look, I've hurt my leg now. Great. Probably be injured for the rest of the year. Don't let her jump up. Push her down. She's naughty. You'll get muddy. Sorry. Come on. There we go. What was I up to? I've completely lost my thread now. Now, should they have been... Oh, by the way, now, according to... I was listening to a news thing. Oh, it's not a news thing, is it? One of these videos where it's one of these radio stations. A lot now do simultaneously record everything for YouTube and so on. And I think it was Julia Brewer and the guy from the free speech thing. I think they made him a lord or something. Anyway, they were chatting about this case, and according to him, and I'm no legal person, in his opinion, he says that what he's been charged with isn't a prison sentence, it's just telling off. So it's unlikely, therefore, he's going to go to prison. I think that's what he was saying. I might be wrong. I might have misinterpreted what he said. But it makes you then wonder, what is the point of charging him? Now, I think the police have just created a whole problem that didn't need to be there. I mean, fine, look, you know what I mean? It makes sense the police pull up, put him in a van, drive him around the corner and drop him off for his own safety. Or even chat to him. You know, do the old, well, I'm chatting to you, blah, blah, blah. But we don't think there's any problem about charging you and just let him go. That's what I'd have probably presumed would have happened. Charging him, I think, creates so many problems. Now, perhaps they've done it because it was like the Manchester airport thing, where rather than charging these brothers straight away, they played silly games and whatnot. But the trouble is, it doesn't really do much. I think the fear is that it'll turn into riots, but unfortunately, I think it creates more problems than it solves. For a start, I think it gives... what you have is, it feeds everybody. For a start, on one side you'll have everybody who's angry and frustrated at Muslims, and it feeds them oh gosh, there's a two-tier system, Muslims can do what they want, blah, 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 and aren't we all victims? And then on the other hand, I think it creates problems for Muslims, because I think it gives the impression to some that, well, we can do whatever we want, and then they go out and commit crimes, and then they end up in prison, and their lives are ruined. And it's just a handful. When we're talking about this, we're just talking about a handful of people, but it only takes a handful of people to do stupid things. You only need one person to get in the head to do something stupid. And then you've got all the other idiots, these fake left-wing people who come out and pretend that they care about Muslims. They'll start defending everything and going, oh, blah, blah, blah. By the way, a lot of these left-wing people don't give a rat's ass about Muslims. It's just they use Muslims to look good. It's why a lot of people have stopped going to the protests, if you see what's happened in Leeds and other places. There used to be a lot of people who went, and now a lot have been hijacked by socialists, so a lot of them just hate Jews, and they don't care about Muslims. But they were using the Muslims as an excuse to go out, and in fact, even now, if you go to Leeds, there's a lot of people now who are using this as an excuse to hate Jews, stomp around. They're real pro-Palestinian. I think a lot of them have stopped going on these protests. It's just been replaced by people who are just Jew haters and just using it as an excuse. And again, what you see was like in Leeds, somebody was shouting some very offensive things, which I'd have imagined would have been on par with this guy, at least on par with him burning this book. And yet, this one was allowed to do it. That's what I'd consider a two-tier system. In my opinion, she wasn't doing much difference than what they were. And by the way, if you watch the video, and I think the guy, if you watch, to me, there was a problem, which I think people spotted. One, the guy who was complaining actually seems to grab his property, or even push him over. It's not clear from the angle I viewed. You'd probably have to watch it a few times. But it did seem he fell over when he was touched. Secondly, the guy also walks across his Israeli flag, which, this sort of goes tit for tat. If you're going to walk across a flag, is that much different to burning a book? I mean, I think it's pretty much on par. I mean, if you're going to claim victimhood, you can't really walk across somebody's flag, which is probably, I don't know if he's Israel or has connections to there, but he could have as much, or if not even more, connection to that flag than this guy has to this religious book. You start playing who's got more rights and all these silly games. And unfortunately, this is another issue we've got in this time. As I said before, this didn't happen a few years ago. People just lived together, if you notice. This is what shocks me about these fake left-wing people, how they're creating a lot of problems. There was a time, I'd say 80s to the 90s, where I don't think there was ever this issue of religious problems. I never recall it. People seem to just get up and live their lives. Any grief was really, I mean, this was a period where we had the IRA bombings, and I think that's where, if you look at where the hate, if you would call it the hate, or the anti-groups, it was towards the Irish. There used to be signs everywhere saying, no Irish, no pets, and no, I forget what the other one was. There was 3 things. These were quite common to see. But since, and obviously, one of the problems was when you have something like the bombings, in America where you had the Twin Towers and so on. This creates hatred, probably on a temporary basis, but it's understandable. Doesn't mean it's right, but I think it's understandable. You have a temporary anger. But I think in time that faded. But unfortunately, I'd argue this is what the point Charlie Veitch was making now. I'm going off track. Very, very quickly, I didn't see any, in the 80s and 90s, this religious weaponisation, but it seems to be a recent thing where religion, and it's not just one religion, I think all of them do it. Again, I'm not religious, so I can care less about any religion. I'm neutral on the religious thing. But I think everyone's trying to claim they've got more rights than everyone else and playing these silly games, and gosh, and they're suing everyone and all this, so people go into jobs and then they go in the next, once they've got the job in the religious gear, and then sue him for saying I should be able to wear my gear. Again, it's happened to even Christians have played these little games, and to me they are games, where I think there was that one who insisted on wearing a cross on the outside of her outfit instead of, nothing stopped her from wearing it on the inside. I mean, from a pure health and safety, you think swinging it, that would be when she was bending over to serve customers, it'd be a bit dangerous. This is all these games of everyone playing. It's quite irritating, and it is just games. It's people showing that they've got more rights than everyone else, and for me, it's the most irritating thing going. It's creating more problems than anything. For me, this is how you create hatred. But like Charlie Veitch said, you've had, and this could be the point, and you've got over a year and a bit of these protests in most major cities, and to begin with, I've always defended them by saying a lot of people who went on them did believe in the pro-Palestinian thing, but again, a lot have now left who believed in that, and it's been replaced, hijacked by socialists and union people who appear to hate Jews and appear to be very online with the Jewish socialist belief of the 1930s. These are people who believe in censorship, changing children's sex, which is what the German night socialists believed in, changing history, pulling statues down, completely eradicating history to, these are things German socialists used to do. It's almost identical. People go, we're completely different. I go, well, what's different about you? The only difference that the German socialists had in reality was they were into wanting to set up Germania or restart it again. That's probably the only difference you've got. There was that side of things. But the modern day socialists do seem to be following 100% the German socialists. You get the impression by a lot of these socialists today, they do want to eradicate the Jewish race. In fact, there was, and I almost felt sorry for this guy until he finished what he was speaking about. There was somebody who posted on Twitter today, an American, white guy, middle class, who was going on saying, oh, you know, people are getting victimised for having pro-Palestine views. And I thought, all right, but then what he did, which sort of, he let it out by accident, he said, these people need eradicating. That was his end. And I thought, hang about, you just sort of lost any sympathy there. You just admitted you were, you know what I mean? And this is the attitude. There's so many of these socialists who will actually tell you they're pro-Hamas. And if you understand what Hamas is, they're basically a Nazi party. They're full on. They've developed from that. I think these are the same guys or similar guys who, in fact, the Nazi party actually had on side with them. If you look at the history, the Nazi party was very in connection with these people. And so you've got these modern socialists who are actually now promoting Hamas, a Nazi literal party, who are then on the other hand pretending that they're anti-fascist. You're not. You're actually full-on Nazis. But you know what I mean? Again, I'm in freedom of speech. So I actually don't think people, you know, I actually support your right to be a racist and whatnot. But at least be open to it. Don't pretend that you're anti-fascist when you're clearly the modern day Nazi party. I mean, it's a bit like when you see the Antifa, a lot of them appear to be modern day Nazi youth. In fact, what was interesting recently was that protest, the counter-protest on Saturday, they were interviewing people, and there was a guy who looked like it was a Nazi youth who was claiming to be anti-fascist. And they were, you know what I mean? Hang on, someone's coming. And you're just going, you actually admitting to, anyway, hang on 1 second. 1 second. They're all friendly, don't worry. He's friendly, just Gidder. He'll probably make a fuss, but ignore him. She's the bully. Oh, he's calmed down. He's saying hello. Hi. Aren't you bothered? Say hello then. But don't, oh, you're going to get tangled.
Yeah, that's alright.
Sorry, hang on. Are you alright? Alright, cheers, sorry. Cheers. See you later. There we go. But yeah, but the point I think, going back to is, what I think Charlie Veitch was making was that you've got a lot of people who are fed up, not just, isn't really particularly pro-Palestinian process themselves, but of all the, you know, where they've gone around being abusive, because they have crossed the line, you know, pulling down posters, smashing buildings up, screaming and shouting at people who are having a coffee, and so on, and blocking the roads. And you know, I've said this before ages ago, that these protests are probably likely to backfire. You know, I've said this before, if they hadn't had these protests, I think more people might have been more warm into their cars. I know quite a few people did actually start off being more pro-Palestine, but then these protests literally put them off. They were fuming at them. And by the way, notice, for all said and done, most of these protests, from time to time they've had small counter-protests, but relatively speaking, they've been allowed to protest for over a year without any problems. And yet, what do you see on the other side? The moment, and I'm not supportive of what happened on Saturday, that protest group, but, you know, you've got the right to believe in what you want. But, you know, they came along, these people claim to be pro, you know, they claim to support the rights of protests, and they pretend that they're anti-fascist, and yet they were there on Saturday trying to stop or interfere with other people protesting, because they, these large, and they were mostly white, virtually all white, these so-called pretend anti-fascists or whatever they pretend to be, all middle class, and they went along because they thought they're white, they're middle class, they're the superior race, we'll tell these working class people what they should think and say and do because we're better than them, they're inferior to us. In their minds they just view everyone working class as racist and inferior and stupid. I've had it myself. I mean, people, this woman yesterday even accused me of being a racist or something online, and I said, well, provide evidence. She never came back to me. It was just too easy for her because she was a bigot. She posted in her profile she was anti-racist and all this, but she was a bigot. And that's what I do find a lot of these white middle class people, well, especially middle class left wing people, they're really bigots. And by the way, a lot of these people, I mean, they all pretend to be working class. Whenever you point out that socialists are all basically white, virtually all white, a few may not be, they're 100% middle class or left wing. They all pretend that they're working class. They cosplay at it. You'll see that they'll wear flat caps pretending that they're working class. I mean, it's you see all these union people on 300k walking, these union leaders who are usually as thick as poop, pretending that they're working class because they wear a flat cap, and they tell each other, they go, oh, we're for the working class, woo, you're not. You're middle class, you don't even like the working class. It's an irony. These are people who want to pretend to be working class, even though they're middle class, who clearly hate the working class. So, the point again, I'm going to keep changing the subject, was, in my opinion, what he was saying was, you've got somebody who presumably was Jewish, was so fed up, and has been having all these protests and seeing posters pulled down, listening to the abuse, constantly over and over and over. No recognition for the people who were actually murdered on that day. Which, by the way, you'd think if you was really anti-war, you would be. You'd be showing that. I mean, it is weird that they pulled down the posters of one side. Well, it doesn't make sense. The only reason you pull down posters is, and again, seems to be a lot, when you see people pulling them down, there seems to be white, middle-class, left-wing people. The only reason you pull these down is if you really are anti-Jew. If you don't believe in Jewish people at all existence. I mean, you couldn't really... I mean, these people are clearly, they're on the side of the German socialists of the 1930s. There's no question about that, a lot of them. Anyway, but they'll tell you they're anti-fascist. I mean, it's the most ridiculous... I mean, most people claim to be anti-fascist. You look in their Twitter post, there's usually within a few days they posted something fascist. Usually they'll be buzzing or trying to silence people, and you're going, I think you're the fascist here. But anyway, going back, I think what Charlie Reach's argument was this is a result of people being frustrated, and the guy just took out his frustration that day. I mean, I know it was also to do with somebody got murdered. I didn't really know about it, to be honest, but I think somebody in Sweden or one of these countries who'd burnt a Quran got murdered, and it was his protest at that. Now, it'd have been simpler just to look the other way. Yes, I understand it's against the religion, blah blah blah, but sometimes you have to accept your religion as a personal thing. I mean, I think this goes back, I forget which queen said it. There was a queen years ago, I think it was it King Henry VIII's daughter or someone like that, about something like that, who said, I might be wrong on this, probably got it wrong, went along with the lines that religion should be personal. I mean, the French actually Napoleon, I believe, eradicated all signs of religion. I don't think you're allowed to show in public any signs. That's why the religious headwear, if you don't know, I think it's been banned in France, but that's because of that law. You're not supposed to. It applies to any religion. You're not supposed to walk around showing your religious beliefs. But what am I about anyway? Oh yeah, so going completely off subject, I think the argument was this is a guy who was so frustrated he just had to do this, and it'd have been simpler just not to have, for this guy to have made a big issue, because now it's everywhere. It's created more problems, and as I said, this has fed everyone, and it didn't need to. It could have just been left, if I'd filmed it, that's it. You could have said it's not right, and I think maybe it might. Hang on, someone's coming. Hey. Oops, there we go. I think if it had been left, people would have just gone, oh, he shouldn't have burnt the book, that's the end of it. Or someone would have supported him right to burn the book, whatever. It'd have been an interesting challenge on thought. And it's, in many ways, this is an artistic expression. It's opening up a debate, should you burn books and blah, blah, blah. Even non-religious. Again, my point is, what would have happened if this had been just a normal book, say, a book on sex? Or Darwin's book? Should people who are religious burn that? And would you have had the same hoo-ha? But instead it's just been allowed to now create this problem, and you see, on the other side of it, this will now feed, I'd imagine, for quite a few months now, more of this narrative. This is all that's happening, is everyone's just getting angry with each other. The problem was, and one of the reasons I'd argue we had riots last year was because it was a hot day. And you tend to find riots, in my opinion, when it's hot and people get worked up. It's unlikely at the moment anything would kick off because of it being cold. But I just think this is just a way of feeding people's anger. Anyway, we'll leave it there, folks. I've just ranted on for no reason. Alright then, bye.